Hey guys, it's Mike here, and in this video, I'm going to be discussing a topic that I've wondered about ever since the Cell Saga of Dragon Ball Z, and really even before that, with the introduction of Piccolo and Kami. And that question is, what if King Piccolo and Kami united together, just like we saw with Piccolo Jr., or just Piccolo by that point in the story, merging with Kami and becoming the Nameless Namekian in the Cell Saga. Just how different would things have been if King Piccolo had merged with Kami back when he was still evil, and not just that, but just how powerful would they be, and what impact would it really have on the story? Well, in this video, I'm going to be getting into that. But before I begin, if you're new to this channel, consider subscribing and enabling all notifications so you can stay up to date with all my future videos. Additionally, make sure to leave a like, share this video out, make sure to watch the entire video because that really helps the channel, as well as watching within the first hour. You guys who do that, you guys are the real heroes of Namek, even though I don't think any of you are Namekian. And if you are, lend me those Dragon Balls ASAP. I kind of want to make some wishes. But with that being said, let's get into the video. So as I mentioned in the intro of this video, what ended up occurring, or what ended up happening, because everyone loves it when I say that as far as I know, we saw Piccolo go to see Kami after he had been defeated easily by Android 17 during the initial encounter with 17 and 18 in the Cell Saga. We saw that Piccolo went there in order to attain the power of the merger between the two of them, which would be able to not only grant him back his original power, but potentially take him significantly further beyond, which is something that I'll be discussing in this video. Piccolo, as a Namekian, still went even further beyond. But no. And as Kami states right here, which he also basically told to Goku when he encountered him before the 23rd Tenkaichi Budokai arc, he says that Piccolo and him were once one being, or to be more precise, his father and he were one single being long ago. And he never expected that he would actually be able to, or really the opportunity would arise for him and Piccolo to merge. Now, with that being said, Piccolo here does actually say that it's not going to be a merger, and rather the fusion with Kami would only be a means of springboarding his power to the level in which he'll be able to defeat the androids, which is kind of his entire goal here, along with, as Kami sees, the thing that actually leads him to wanting to merge with Piccolo is after he witnesses everything occurring on Earth with the discovery of not only the second time machine, which he was already aware of, but also the being that came out of it, as he says right here. So this strange feeling that's been plaguing me for the last 4 years was not due to the artificial humans. What is it that came back in that time machine? Not even I can tell. One thing is certain, a creature even more terrible than the artificial humans is alive somewhere on this Earth. Soon, very soon, something devastating is going to happen on Earth. This is nothing like the crisis that came before, time and time again. I have a horrible premonition of doom, and that's the main reason why Kami actually allowed himself to merge with Piccolo, as we go on to see right here, where Kami would actually be the one who was basically transferring himself into Piccolo, whereas Piccolo would be the foundation, which is why he placed his hand on Kami's chest, which then in turn led him to become the most powerful warrior at the time. And as he says right here, which is something I'm going to be getting into more significantly, is that Piccolo is different now, according to Kami's words, and most of the evil has actually left his heart and vanished at this point. And that's what allows him to make up his mind to actually merge with Piccolo in an instant, increasing his power significantly, as well as changing his overall personage as he becomes once more the Nameless Namekian, as he says right here, before flying off in order to fight against regular imperfect Cell before he absorbs any of the androids. And we see just how powerful Piccolo actually became when he is able to be taken from the level of weaker than Super Saiyan Goku and Vegeta at this point in time to being able to fight against Android 17. And as I actually discussed in a video in the top right corner, it was something that Piccolo arguably could have even won that fight against 17 because of different abilities that he possessed, such as the Hellzone grenade and, more importantly, the light grenade, which you guys can check out that video more in depth for. The point of the matter is that Piccolo not only was seen by Kami as no longer possessing the same degree of evil within his heart, which is the main reason why Kami split in the first place into the two of them, but additionally Piccolo was so powerful at this point, as Kami actually mentions right here, which is that the gap began to widen further and further between them, which really started with the 23rd tournament until eventually Kami, according to his own words, basically became as good as nothing by the overall power with regard to playing a role within all the fights that would occur on Earth. Even saying right here that the time had finally come for God and the devil to become one, which is the dichotomy between Piccolo and Kami in the very first place. But let's get back into the original Piccolo, King Piccolo, who was, according to Kami, the evil spawn of his original self. And King Piccolo was already pretty powerful when he actually emerged from that rice cooker after he was freed by the Pilaf gang, being able to actually defeat Goku at this point in time. And this is before he even utilized the Dragon Balls, as we would go on to see, and wish for his eternal youth, and according to himself, basically bring him to what was unlimited power. What is he, Emperor Palpatine? And he crowned this off by not only increasing his power significantly, but additionally also destroying Shenron in the process, so that he could be able to stop anyone from using the balls at that given time. Now, a lot of people have speculated as to how King Piccolo actually did destroy Shenron here, considering that he isn't the typical type of being that you'd be able to fight. He is a dragon god and a kind of transcendent being that emerges from within the Dragon Balls, or, you know, is a power extension of Kami, almost like his stand or something. But, you know, a lot of people have speculated that instead of it just being power, it's possible that Piccolo actually, because of his inherent connection to Kami and because of his demonic nature and overall abilities that are better than, you know, just typical key-based abilities, that allowed him to also destroy the dragon, as we could see right here. So that's definitely a possibility, and it's something to be left open to interpretation. Either way, King Piccolo would eventually go on to be defeated by Goku, as we see here, before inevitably spawning that egg, which became Piccolo Jr. Now, in terms of King Piccolo's power relative to Kami, it was very different, as I mentioned before. It wasn't until the 23rd tournament that Piccolo really became more powerful than Kami. Because we could see pretty clearly when Goku met Kami the first time after he had defeated King Piccolo, he was basically an ant compared to the god of the earth at that time, being finger flicked away decades before Beerus ever even thought of doing that to Super Saiyan 3 Goku. And as he goes on to explain to Goku that the two of them not only were together in terms of the original self, but that Kami, the reason why he'd split off from Piccolo was because he wanted to succeed the god of the earth at the time, who was dying. And he unfortunately wasn't able to do that because the god of the earth knew that Kami had built up too much evil within himself as he was traveling on the earth in the time before he found out about this, which is what caused him to shoot out Piccolo from himself, which in turn led to horrible atrocities happening on earth, because Kami, I guess, didn't really think that through, or maybe even think to do something to Piccolo the second he was released, rather than just, you know, setting him free on the earth. I guess he just figured, well, it's okay, I get to become God, and everyone on earth can suffer under the devil that I just kind of created because, you know, I decided to. Well, he certainly started off on a good foot, didn't he? But overall, compared to the two, Kami was definitely far more powerful than King Piccolo, and so as a result, it would be a question of who exactly would be the foundation here, and also if their merger would be the same type of merger that we had seen right here before with Kami and Piccolo Jr., much time after everything that happened with Demon King Piccolo, in which we saw he became the Nameless Namekian, but essentially was still Piccolo's body, just with the consciousness and, you know, possible wisdom and everything from Kami within him. Very similar to what we saw happen on Namek. When Piccolo went to meet with Nail, and he was actually told by Nail that even even though his power was significant after his training with King Kai, which he received a gigantic jump in just 6 days essentially of training on King Kai's planet, to where he was arguably stronger than Goku in his base form up until this point in time. According to Nail, if Piccolo had actually merged with Kami before coming to Namek, he would have been able to defeat Frieza, which is something that Guru actually mentions earlier on when he asks if a Super Saiyan was the one who killed Piccolo on Earth, because he knew just how powerful and significant in terms of being a prodigy the child of Katats was, who was the Nameless Namekian that became Kami and Piccolo. Now, a lot of people do question what form of Frieza they were talking about. We do see that after Piccolo merges with Nail, he's able to fight against second form Frieza and is not able to defeat him as third form Frieza. However, with that being said, the argument can still be made that Piccolo was stronger than final form Frieza at 100%, or at least the Nameless Namekian would have been if he had never split in the first place, which is backed up by the fact that Guru is saying right here about the Super Saiyan possibly being the one to defeat him. And as we know, the only examples of Super Saiyans we really see in the series are more powerful than Frieza. Now, with that being said, Guru does go on to say that having his power is essentially what occurred here, in that he was incredibly prodigious in terms of being a prodigy, in that he had incredible inborn powers within him. However, if he had become whole, his true power and potential would have been once again restored to him. So that raises the question of, would King Piccolo actually be anywhere near as powerful as this Piccolo, who we had seen prior was capable of defeating Android 20 easily, who is somebody who is even more powerful than Frieza on Namek, and probably Super Saiyan Goku when he first fought Frieza on Namek, or at least somewhere close to that potential. There's a lot of people who think that the androids 1920 were actually weaker than Frieza, but you could see in a video in the top right corner where I actually broke down why they were stronger. Either way, this is vastly more powerful, thousands upon thousands of times stronger than King Piccolo was when he fought against Goku and also became his prime self back in the King Piccolo arc many years before, and before Piccolo Jr. was even reincarnated. And as Kami does say in different translations of the scene, as well as we go on to see during the 23rd tournament arc, King Piccolo's reincarnation of Piccolo Jr. is actually a greater prodigy and even more powerful than King Piccolo himself was, although, you know, when we go into Namek, we find out that he was more of a warrior-type Namekian with this Piccolo, comparative to the original Piccolo, who was seemingly just a member of the Dragon Clan, or perhaps was both a warrior and a Dragon Clan simultaneously, just because of how great his potential was as a prodigy. So again, it raises the question, would he be anywhere near as powerful here? That's definitely up for deliberation, but with that being said, if we go by what Guru or the Super Kami says earlier on, he does say that he believes that the only one who would have been capable of defeating this particular Super Namekian, let's say, was actually a Super Saiyan. So with that being said, even if he wasn't as powerful as this Super Namekian Piccolo right here, he still would have been arguably more powerful than Frieza, but potentially weaker than a Super Saiyan, which means that maybe he would be in the potential range of Piccolo before he merged with Kami here as a result. Now, with that being said, there is another thing to bring up, which is another major point that could contribute to everything occurring during this, which is that King Piccolo was still evil. He was basically the incarnation of the evil that came from the Nameless Namekian or Kami. And thus, as a result, that would mean that him merging with Kami would necessarily be different than what we saw here with this Piccolo, because according to Kami's own words, most of the evil within Piccolo's heart right here had left him. So what would happen if the evil King Piccolo were to unite with the mostly good god of the earth, and most likely would have served as the foundation, considering the fact that King Piccolo had wished for eternal youth, whereas this Kami was still old and in this elderly body, despite being more powerful than King Piccolo himself? Well, we do actually see an instance of an evil being that was spawned from another being in a very similar situation situation to this being the one to absorb the other and all of the ramifications that happened with. And that would be Fat Buu during the Buu saga. After this Majin Buu had actually gotten so enraged and the contradiction within himself had grown to such a point after he had given up on his ways of evil after befriending Mr. Satan during this point in the story, when the two of his friends were simultaneously shot back to back by the evils of humanity, much like Kami spitting out Piccolo, this Buu spat out another incarnation of his evil and wrath, which was the Gray Buu that we could see right here, the evil Buu, wrath Buu, skinny Buu, whatever you want to call him. And I also went in depth into everything involving this and why he turns into what he inevitably turns into that I'm getting into in a more dramatic way, which is Super Buu, in a video you could see in the top right corner. Nonetheless, this Buu was actually more powerful than Fat Buu, arguably because he took the majority of their power when the two of them split together, or split apart rather, and thus, in this case, as we even see here, Toriyama proving and confirming what I had just said, that most of the power went to this evil Buu, which in the anime, I believe Piccolo actually is the one to say this instead of Toriyama, because I guess Toribot can't show up anytime the narrator does. He then in turn ate this Buu, absorbed him, and became Super Buu, which is a Buu which is driven by pure evil, who had taken all of the power with all of the absorptions, as well as Kid Buu, within the Fat Buu, and diminished all of the effects of the Supreme Kais that were holding their effects on him and weakening him and taming him, and thus in turn allowed him to be that much more powerful than Fat Buu and able to actually fight against characters even stronger than Super Saiyan 3 Goku, like Gotenks and Gohan. And I discussed even more how powerful he is in a video you could see in the top right corner. So there's an argument to be made here that if King Piccolo, being pure evil and being the ultimate foundation of everything, were to unite with Kami like this Piccolo did, then what would occur is basically the same thing that happened with Super Buu after he took over the body of Fat Buu as evil Buu in this case, or the Gray Aku Buu. Now the fact of the matter is that if that was the case, then we would have a King Piccolo who was basically as strong as Piccolo after he trained with Super Saiyan Goku for 3 years, which means that he would have been able to easily stomp everyone on the earth. Goku, even after, training and arguably becoming a Super Saiyan on Namek and everything like that. And he definitely would have been able to beat, let's say Frieza, if for whatever reason Frieza showed up on the earth, or maybe if he found the spaceship in the Yanzabit Heights and decided to, start going around the universe and laying claim and becoming the king of the galaxy or king of the universe, because who would really be able to stop him at that point other than characters who would go on to be introduced later on, such as, maybe if Dr. Gero for whatever reason keeps making 17 and 18, maybe if for some reason we saw other instances of, villains showing up like Majin Buu eventually. There's a lot of different things that could have happened that would have been able to ultimately defeat him, especially when we get into Super with characters like Broly that he could have stumbled upon and get easily slapped by base Broly and stuff like that. But nonetheless, he would have been so powerful that nobody would have been able to stop him on the earth, even probably with the Mafuba, as we saw failed against the old King Piccolo, so it no doubt would have failed again and again against this new evil King Piccolo, and thus in turn, things would have taken probably a far more significantly darker story, in turn at least in the story, for the characters and for the Dragon Ball franchise. Either that, or it's entirely possible that because Kami was more powerful than King Piccolo around the time this merger would have occurred, that does in fact mean that he could have possibly had an impact over King Piccolo, much like we saw with Fat Buu on Kid Buu that stopped him from killing Mr. Satan as Evil Buu and Kid Buu until he spit him out, and additionally as the Supreme Kais had on Buu, which was then reversed essentially when he became Evil Buu after absorbing Fat Buu within himself. So it is possible that Kami would be able to restrain the evil within the King Piccolo, but it's possible that they might go in a more morally ambiguous or neutral direction, or maybe he would just become more like this Piccolo, where he'd be a little bit more tamed and a little bit more in control of his evil, and then in turn eventually mellowing out over time. Although a lot of that did happen because Piccolo was defeated by Goku and everything we saw occur in that particular aspect of the series. So a lot of questions open up, but either way, I do feel like the overall idea and concept is something that is very interesting to explore theoretically and otherwise. So what if King Piccolo merged and reunited with Kami before he actually died at the hands of Goku, was reincarnated into Piccolo Jr., and we inevitably saw it during the Cell Saga? Well, I think that things definitely would have been massively different in the story had the two of them come together once more. Whether it be in the case of their power being even greater, most likely than Frieza's based upon the information we're given, whether it be the fact that nobody would be able to stand up to him on the Earth, Goku and friends would be wiped out, everything in the universe would be kind of subject to him up until possibly the release of the more powerful characters that we see encountering him later on in the story. And with everything being said, this would be a very interesting thing to explore, the concept of the God of the Earth and essentially its devil, the evil side of him, coming together as one and possibly doing something quite different than what we saw in the story. But let me know your own thoughts down below in the comments. What do you think would happen if these two characters reunited before we saw it originally in the main storyline? Additionally, make sure to leave a like down below, share your own thoughts, and if you're new here, consider subscribing and enabling all notifications so you could stay up to date with all my future videos. And with all that being said, guys, make sure to stick around because there's a lot more to come in the future.
Yeah, and you better subscribe.